Welcome into Dynasty Mode, the unofficial EA Sports college football game podcast. My name is Arky Shea. Have you heard about this new video game called Varsity? Yeah, Varsity, as in junior varsity, varsity. Yeah, well, there is a video game that's being developed right now called Varsity, and it's all about high school football. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's not what we're here for. We're not here for the high school football video game. But, folks, I've stumbled across this thing recently, and I wanted to share it with you. I think you need to know about this video game because, based on their social media interactions and their numbers, they need to be built up more. I'm not saying we can do that, but I'm not saying that we can't do that. I'm saying you need to go support this team because I love what's happening here. It's called Varsity, at least that's the working title right now, and it's been in full development since February of last year, 2022. Yeah, where have I been on the party, right? Well, I'm on the bandwagon now, kiddos, and this thing is spectacular. Oh, chef's kiss. And I'm only seeing the bones of it happen on the old websites now. So it's called Varsity, and I'm going to show you a few things here on this podcast. Now, if you are a listener to the audio version of the podcast, you're going to hear me talk about the things that are on some of these graphics that Varsity has put out. But I think you should go check out the YouTube video as well, just so you see also a couple of the visuals. There's a video visual I'm going to show you, as well as a couple of screenshots of things like the stadiums that might look like. Now, first and foremost, before we get to that, Varsity is all about high school football. It's not about college. It's not about the pro. Doesn't mean that couldn't be something that gets there. But right now, it's literally all being developed about high school football. And I love this thing. It's not that I'm a high school football wonk, but let's think about what happens in the college football video game, right? You cannot spend any time on the college football video game without at least somewhat briefly discussing high school football. Now, whether you play the road to the Heisman or Glory Road or whatever you would like to call the mode coming forward in the new video game, or whether you just know that so and so went to so and so high school, or you know that when you listen to the college football broadcast, there's a lot of people who are like, hey, he's from Houston, Texas, and he went to Corpus Christi High School. Now, that probably wouldn't happen, seeing those two very different cities. But regardless, you know that the high school football integration is something that is already substantially underneath the bedrock. And actually may be the bedrock. I mean, if you make a middle school video game, maybe we shouldn't go middle school video game. Let's start with the high school level because I think that's the most interesting level for me when it comes to stepping up the next access level of having the video game being parts of football. We got Madden in the NFL. We got the college football video game from EA Sports, but Varsity is now something that's coming out. And Varsity is not from EA or any of these developers you may be very, very familiar with. They're from a couple of upstarts. And now I want to start showing you, talking about some of the things that we're talking about. Varsity, by the way, if you want to go find them, all their social media, I believe it's Varsity Video Game on Instagram. I'm going to show you a video from them as well as their website, varsityfootballgame.com. That takes you to their Patreon, where you can subscribe to get cool extra access and see updates as the video game goes forward. Now, let's talk about this video game just a little bit, shall we? Varsity Football, the video game, is actually being developed by people that I had not previously had heard of as a developer. Now, I'm not what you would call a savant or a wonk when it comes to developers and game makers, and that's okay. I only know a handful. I mean, I'm barely learning about engines, right? Like, this isn't about breaking down every bit of minutia there, but it is interesting to note that it's being made by Spear Interactive and Pyramid Lake Games. They're building on their website. It noticed that they're the first ever video game that captures, quote, the passion and excitement of high school football across America. Now, before I show you a couple of these things about this video game, I want you to know one thing first and foremost, that I think what makes sense about this game is not only are they going all in, they're going deep into the all in. As in, the reports I've seen on it is that they're going for over 36 or maybe it's 39,000 different schools in high school. Now, I don't know how you do that, so to speak. I don't know if that's a public domain kind of thing because you know all of these schools are, or at least the majority of them are public, and maybe privates are different. But that's a very interesting, very, very interesting development because if you noticed, if you noticed from the college football video game, you could do Road to Glory. You can go run for the Heisman. You could try to be the best of the best of the best. But the high school is very subdued, right? You only had a handful of different environments you could choose from to be college football environments. You could choose tons and tons of cities and stuff, but you didn't exactly get all the nicknames and such that you wanted. You could do some edit and modification, and then you were often ready to go. Sometimes you would play teams that are in your state. Who knows if they're in your region or your classification or your division? Really was just sort of a crapshoot. You know, you could just play a whole bunch of teams that are technically cities inside your state, go to the playoffs, done, you're off to college. And that's good for college essentially because college is focused on the college game, right? But you couldn't do a road to get there without at least a little bit of high school. So to be able to suspend that even further, or at least roll that forward even further to be a massive amount of schools to where you are way deep in the weeds when it comes to at least the names of these schools, it's pretty darn cool. It's pretty darn cool. Now, there again, remember, this is all currently in development. So, what I'm going to show you, it's not a finished product. It's not even close to a finished product. What I'm going to show you is things that they've been working on and that they're updating as we go with this actual video game. First, let me show you this. This is one of their first development updates. So, they've been in production since, I guess, full time development since February last year. This is development they gave in November. Now, I'm going to continue to add on to this, so relax. But as you can see, they have recorded and imported more animations into the game, like QB specific animations, wide receiver stances. Again, general development of football. Again, this isn't a team that's copying and pasting from another engine that's existed. They're having to build all this uniforms and everything from scratch. Here's a cool thing. Their dynasty logic. Now, the cool thing about this video game is that they are also offering the opportunity to be a dynasty with a player or a coach. Now that is pretty significant. Now, we've seen dynasties done in other modes before, in other video games before, in other football, obviously, video games as we're speaking to. But what we haven't quite seen is the in depth at this level. And to start at your freshman year, as a player, it intrigues me. So they say we've developed a system for players to inform their coaches of plans outside their high school team. This is cool. I'm hitting the table because I'm very excited. So as a coach, if you are in a high school level, you have lots of things to pay attention to. You have lots of things to worry about, lots of them. You have boosters, you have practices, you have kids making grades, you have all kinds of things that you need to pay attention to. Parents, training. You also have all these temperamental kids, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 kids, lower levels. Like I know of a school here locally to me that's trying to get into the varsity game. They have like 12 players on their team. You know how many you need to play a football? A football game needs 11. And then you put them 11 on the other side. So tough, right? So you can go all kinds of levels regards to this, but there's so much as a coach that you would have to deal with. We'll address this logic first. Like players giving you ideas on what to do outside of their team, like playing another sport at another school. Yeah, does a kid want to go play basketball or run track? Running 707. How about this? Applying for jobs. This is what the college football game needs. The in-depth nature of a dynasty mode. The dynasty mode that gets you so into the weeds that you can get bogged down in all kinds of stuff. Like, come on. Your star quarterback needs to go get a job. He's going to go tell you, hey, I'm going to go work at the local fast food joint. Yeah, how about that? That's cool. I love that. I love getting that deep into the weeds. Again, Dynasty mode is my jam when it comes to the college football video game. Why wouldn't it be the mode when it comes to the high school football video game? And why not deal with every single thing? Also, In-depth training. This is a February of this year release. Coaches have the ability to set training budgets for the team in the offseason, including weight room, speed and agility, conditioning, film study, positional focus areas like the QB room. And each one increases the player's ratings or affects it and is directly influenced by their individual potential, personalities, and the coach's focus. Now, here's where we get even more into the weeds. And this is what I love. This is the management of a dynasty I want to do. They say, for example, the offensive coordinator may have a running back focus, while the offense will benefit from training programs the running backs on the team will see an added boost. Huh? So this adds the importance of, look at this. Look at these words if you're looking on the screen. Hiring the right staff for your vision of the team. Folks, I hope the new college football video game has this feature because I've been begging to be able to just hire OCs and fire DCs and get my guys on that I want. But this high school game is allowing you, call Varsity, by the way. I'm going to mention it a few more times, to be able to hire your staff. That's beautiful. That is chef's kiss again. Keep it coming, Varsity, because this is what makes a very good video game in Dynasty mode, right? Because this game is all about getting into the weeds. Now, I'll tell you this. First and foremost, there is a slight damper on maybe some expectations. Remember, there was the NFL Coach video game that was not such a hot seller, right? And you can get into the weeds that way with that game as the coach. But this is a general manager mode from the bottom up, right? This includes more. Let's get to some more of this that you can hear about it. How about the March update from this year? Schools can now manage the maintenance of their field, lights, press box, scoreboard stands, and bleachers. The quality of these items will not only impact attendance and revenue generated from games, but also the likelihood of injuries for a poorly kept field. Look at this! Are you hearing the words that my mouth is saying? I don't know how much you know about high school football coaches, but they got to do a lot. They've got to coach. Some of them got to teach. Most of them have to teach. It's the super high levels, for example, in 7A here in Alabama, don't really have to teach as much. And you got to make sure money's coming in to field that team. This is not one of those really, 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 really cool situations where you have tons of boosters willing to toss in NIL money and other monies as well to where you can field a team. There's not a lot of television revenue coming in, but you still got to make sure the field's looking nice and painted. You still got to get the lights on every Friday night. That's beautiful. This is gorgeous so far. This is exactly the game I've always wanted the college football video game to be. Now the high school game, Varsity, is going to be that. Now, they also added that in the gameplay mode, they just recently added player details like individual speed, height, weight, dynamic catching, behavior animations, so forth. For example, short players may need to reach up for a catch where taller players can catch the same pass at their chest, for example. And they've added new plays. Again, this is a game in development, full on in development happening right now. This is the most recent update that they've given, the June 2023. Player sports updates at the start of each of the seasons. So if you're in high schools, you know that you got seasons, like literal seasons, like winter, spring, summer, and fall. You get updates on the players' availability for training and for games because some kids may be running track. Do you have them to be able to start running on their conditioning, working on weight training? For example, hockey and basketball takes place in the winter, while track and field takes place in the spring. Proper games are shown inside their actual moments, or actually their actual physical seasons. And now they've continued to increase their on-field gameplay development with their dynasty mode. So at any stage of off-season, you can jump on the field to test out different players in different positions. That's right. Is your training working? Which kid needs what that week? Boom! Done. Does my running back need to be faster? Let's go start some training. Does my wide receiver need to catch better? Let's start that training. But you got to test them first. Oh, man. Guys, are you getting excited? I'm getting excited. Now, before I get on to the next couple of things, which are a couple of screenshots of what some stuff may look like, I want to also mention that I don't know the release date of this. As you mentioned, they're still heavy in development at this point. So maybe someone at Varsity could reach out to me and let me know. I'd love to have them on to talk about this thing. I think it's super duper neato. But here's also the other cool part. We are less than a year, just under a year from getting the college football video game. The high school game, I can't imagine, but I do not know can be too far outside, right? Technically, November 2022, they were in full-time development, but they were beforehand doing so. If you look at their social media on their Twitter page as well as their Instagram, there's lots of updates from developers who are working with them who are talking about, listening to some music and working on some development. What are you guys doing? Things like that. So there is work constantly going on. In fact, I think I saw that they may have 5 full-time developers on right now. And I don't know if that's a large number. It doesn't feel like a large number, but I don't know how many you need to develop a game of this size. But let me show you a couple of cool screenshots from this. First of all, would you like to see what looks like it could be an introductory video screenshot or maybe a wide angle zoom? Or how about this? We'll call these things, now that we will have a 2023 in our life and next year 2024, drone shots. Huh? This is what a potential stadium looks like. Now look at this. Are you looking at this? This is apparently one of their Texas stadiums, I think. It's beautiful, right? It's beautiful. And I think the thing you have to pay attention to with this is, can you get as many different types of stadiums? Now I think this is called a Texas style stadium. So it's not a specific school in Texas. But if you can get as many different stadium types as they've talked about in some of their social media posts, and they are trying. So, city stadiums, suburb stadiums, rural stadiums, and yet some of that definitely to a degree in the college football video game. But if you can increase the number of options and visuals about how that look, you make this game potentially look spectacular. Spectacular. And that's what I wanted to do. I want it to look spectacular. That's what I want out of this video game. This video game is now my second and third to be son. I am now on with a kid, a newborn, the college football video game, and I guess this is now my new baby. I am ready for Varsity. A couple more screenshots of things to look for. Well, this is a screenshot. This is some design elements. Look at this. Now, the scissor lift you could take or do without, because we've seen them everywhere, and they are on high school stadiums all over the place, but the college too, so they're around. But look at some of the yard markers. Huh? Where are you seeing that at? You're a high school football field. You got that designed? Look at that. If you're again on the podcast, you need to go find Dynasty Mode, the podcast on YouTube, and check out this mark. Now, you're going to be about 19 and a half minutes into the podcast to find this. But the yard markers look cool. What they are is sort of this square. They're technically triangles, but they're the square orange fronts with the black numerals on the front, and they just sort of stand on the sideline at the numerals. Not right at the numerals. You have them a little bit far back, but you know what I'm saying. You can mark the yardage on the field. You can mark these with markers too. It's a cool design feature. Another thing I want to show you. Look at this. This is Dotson Branch, the Orange Vikings in Dotson Branch, Tennessee. Now, I don't think they're the actual Orange Vikings, but I'd have to go look. I think they're the Wildcats or something. But Dotson Branch is actually a school in Tennessee. That gives me a lot of faith going forward. And look at the rest of this. Guys, if you're on the podcast just listening, you got to go find this at some point. You're now at 20 and a half minutes. The head coach, you got all the issues with them. You got the number of experience, the preferred scheme. This guy happens to like an air raid. How good is he as far as his prestige? A B-, development. He's a C+ at developing players, and personality. He's unreliable. Now that's not you. You are someone else, because look at this. They have a vacant offensive coordinator spot that you can apply for the job at the bottom of the screen. You can apply to be the OC. I cannot wait to see what this is going to look like. Apply for the job? What kind of process does that look like? Because I am excited. And look, it says position requirements. You got to be a previous job was an OC, 5 to 10 years of experience. Do you have that? It has a like the Ghostbusters mark out circle there. So you didn't have the 5 to 10 experience, but it doesn't mean you can't apply for the job. How many of you are applying for jobs right now that you don't quote meet every single qualification for? Optional air raid offensive scheme and winning record. Okay. I'm excited. Look, the defensive coordinator, his name's Mitchell, by the way. Gives you all his personality is easygoing, by the way. You can view his details. And there's apparently an option to hire or fire him. Well, I don't know if you can hire or fire him, seeing as you're not the head coach, but you might be able to hire him if you were the head coach somewhere else, which is pretty cool, right? Again, we've talked about on this podcast before how we hate that you can just be offered a job and take it. Like there's no interview process, there's no questions to answer, there's just nothing. There's just you go to the coaching carousel at the end of the year, and for some reason, if you're a 6-star coach, Georgia may offer you, and so will Middle Tennessee. And you're like, okay, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And then if you keep going, you'll get like Wyoming every now and then. They'll be like, hey, you want to be the OC? It's like, no, I've been the head coach for 15 years. Why would I be the OC of Wyoming? That's a little unrealistic and a little different, and I would like that to have some cleanups to it. Varsity's got a couple. Here's another one for you. Spring fundraising. Yes. 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 If you're looking at this on the YouTube, you're at 23 minutes now into the podcast. Drop down options for the Chamber of Commerce. They starting budget $20,000. You've raised $1,450. Your current budget's $21,450. So then you get to look and see who has donated what to you. For example, there's a Curtis Grainer who's an alumni who donated. He's going to be determined, and its program support level is kind of But there's a bank named Jasmine Beaver. Well, that's the lady who's in charge of the bank, who's a large donor. She's part of the Booster Club. She added $900. She's a big fan, a big-time booster. Now, is $900 a lot? Yeah, in high school football, she gave you almost $1,000. And if your current budget's $21,000, that's a lot of money from a bank. Here's one other thing I wanted to show you with that. You go to that same fella at the Chamber of Commerce, Jordan Willis, you start asking for donations. You can ask for a donation amount. And here's the cool thing. You are given a measurement of whether or not asking for $0 to $100 is low risk versus $500 plus is actually a high risk. That affects things going forward. Meaning, hey, did you ask for too much? Maybe he's not so helpful next year or going forward in the future. Maybe he's more of a headache for you. And look at this right here on the screen. The last year's donation was $900. You have a donation history. This is the thing, people. This is the thing. I love details, right? I love the little tiny details that make the video game. It's not always just, sometimes it's the gameplay, sometimes it's the certain animations, what players are able to do. Sometimes it's just the texture of the grass or seeing as many different options of fans celebrating or looking sad into the sidelines. It's the details that make the video game for me. Little details like that, donation history, like to me, that tells me that the developers of this game are thinking with their entire brain and not just a little piece of it. Now, who knows whether or not this thing could be incorporated into the college football video game, and then subsequently you're talking about a dynasty from being a freshman in high school all the way to being a Hall of Famer in the National Football League in Madden. But I'll tell you this, if I get to have a level of detail game like that for Varsity, you got me. You got me. It's all in the details. It's all the little things that make this game. And by the way, you get to go play the games too. You get to go coach and play the games too, because that's the most fun part. But being able to see sort of the reality of sports interspersed with the games itself, to me, that makes a great video game. To me, that's the immersive experience I want. When I play games like Call of Duty and stuff like that, I look for games that have tons and tons of gameplay. Right? The actual game, not the online mode. You could do all kinds of great stuff. But I don't usually play online. It may change with a new college football video game, as some of you, if you want to play. But for me, it's how much of a gameplay from the start of the game to quote beating the game. I want games that have tons of that. This, and with sports, it's kind of different, right? Because sports has a season. It's a very short 10 games, 12 games, 17 games kind of thing. And then playoffs, you know, regardless of each side, each qualifier classification. It's short or long, who knows? But you're only getting a few extra games. The rest is the details. The rest is the training. The rest is sort of managing your program. The rest is recruiting. That's what it is. And I love the fact that Varsity is on their game with this. So God bless you, Varsity. Varsity, if you're seeing this, come at me. Don't come at me on Twitter. I very rarely check that. So if you want to come after me, you can check the email or the comments, wherever you want to go. I'd love to talk to you more about this game because this thing is awesome. Awesome. And I can't wait for when it comes out. All right, that's going to do it for us here on Dynasty Mode. We'll be back with another podcast very, very soon, next week, in fact. Until then, save and sim to next week.